The tension between King Charles and Prince Harry has reached an all-time high, but this time, it's not just about personal grievances or long-standing resentment. It's about money, an eye-watering $330 million, a sum so staggering that it raises serious questions about what could possibly be at stake. The whispers inside the royal corridors suggest that Harry and Meghan approached the king with a proposal, a financial settlement in exchange for reconciliation. But Charles, firm in his convictions, reportedly dismissed their request with a sharp rebuke, making it clear that the days of royal handouts were over. His response was unambiguous. That's all you can get. It's a phrase that cuts deep, not just in its apparent finality, but in what it symbolizes. For the first time since stepping away from royal duties, it seems Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have come face to face with the reality of their decision. The doors they once thought would always be slightly ajar now seem firmly shut. No amount of money, sentiment, or strategic negotiations can undo the past. And if reports are to be believed, this latest chapter in their ongoing saga has irreversibly changed their relationship with the monarchy. But how did we get here? What could have possibly led to this point where a father outright refuses his son's request for financial aid? To understand this, we need to go back to the very foundation of Harry and Meghan's departure from the royal family, the battles fought on both sides, and the deep-seated wounds that never seemed to heal. It all began in 2020 when Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back as senior royals, a move that sent shockwaves through both the United Kingdom and the world. At first, their exit was framed as an opportunity to gain independence, to craft a life outside of the rigid constraints of royal expectations. But almost immediately, it became clear that financial security was going to be a crucial factor in this transition. At the time of their departure, Buckingham Palace made it clear that the couple would no longer receive public funding. They would also have to step away from their lucrative royal duties, including state-funded security, which had been a significant concern for Harry, given the constant media scrutiny. To mitigate this, they sought financial independence, leading to high-profile deals with Netflix, Spotify, and a lucrative book contract that saw Harry's memoir, Spare, become an instant bestseller. Yet despite these ventures, it seems that financial stability remained elusive. Their Spotify deal, once touted as a multi-million-dollar game-changer, was eventually terminated. Their Netflix projects, while still ongoing, have not produced the level of success anticipated. Reports surfaced that the couple was struggling to maintain the extravagant lifestyle they had envisioned in Montecito, California, a far cry from the unlimited resources they once enjoyed as working royals. It was against this backdrop that the alleged request for $330 million arose. Some sources claim that the couple saw this as an opportunity for a clean slate, a chance to mend fences while also securing their financial future. Others speculate that the request was a strategic maneuver, a way to test the waters and see if the royal family was willing to extend an olive branch, even if it came with a hefty price tag. But if Harry and Meghan believed they could broker peace through financial negotiations, they gravely miscalculated King Charles's stance. For Charles, money has never been just money. It's a symbol of responsibility, duty, and tradition. Unlike his predecessors, who may have handled financial matters behind closed doors, Charles has been vocal about the importance of fiscal discipline within the monarchy. He is acutely aware of public perception and the growing calls for transparency regarding royal expenditures. The idea of granting a personal fortune to his son, who has repeatedly criticized the institution, was not just unfeasible. It was politically damaging. And so, the response came swiftly and decisively. No financial assistance, no deal, and certainly no return to the royal fold with titles and privileges intact. That's all you can get. The weight of those words is impossible to ignore. For Harry and Meghan, it represents the stark reality of their estrangement from the monarchy. It's a definitive rejection, not just of their financial request, but of the possibility of reconciliation on their terms. For Charles, it's a statement of authority, a declaration that he will not be swayed by sentimentality or public pressure. What's even more telling is the timing of this development. Charles, now fully settled into his role as king, has been making calculated decisions to solidify his reign. From slimming down the monarchy to redefining the roles of senior royals, every move he makes is designed to strengthen the institution. Granting Harry and Meghan such a significant sum would have directly contradicted his broader vision for a modernized, cost-conscious royal family. The fallout from this decision is already beginning to take shape. On one hand, royal loyalists see this as a necessary and justified stance, one that reinforces the monarchy's stability. On the other, supporters of Harry and Meghan view it as yet another sign that the couple has been permanently exiled, left to fend for themselves in a world that once revered them. But beyond the public debate, the real question is, where do Harry and Meghan go from here? If financial backing from the royal family is no longer an option, how do they sustain their lifestyle and influence? More importantly, how does this impact their relationship with King Charles, Prince William, and the rest of the royal household? The coming months will be crucial in determining their next steps. Will they attempt to retaliate with another explosive interview? Will they double down on their existing ventures, hoping to prove they can thrive without royal ties? Or will this latest rejection push them further into the shadows, signaling the end of their once dominant presence in the media? One thing is certain. The battle lines have been drawn, and this is no longer just about family. It's about power, influence, and the unshakable force of the monarchy itself. Whether this is the final nail in the coffin of Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family remains to be seen. But if history has taught us anything, it's that in the world of royalty, nothing is ever truly settled. The $330 million request, whether a desperate plea or a calculated negotiation, marked a pivotal moment in the ongoing tension between Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the British monarchy. It wasn't just about money. It was about control, perception, and ultimately, the future of the Sussexes outside the royal fold. The revelation of such a demand, if true, raises immediate questions. Why did Harry and Meghan feel justified in requesting such an enormous sum? Was it a lump sum to cut all ties, a financial settlement disguised as an olive branch, or was there more to the request than meets the eye? At first glance, the amount seems excessive, even by royal standards. While the monarchy's wealth is substantial, individual royals do not have free access to the vast fortunes associated with the crown. King Charles, much like his mother Queen Elizabeth before him, operates under strict financial limitations. Much of the royal fortune is tied up in assets, estates, and properties that belong to the institution rather than the individuals within it. The Crown Estate, which manages billions in assets, generates revenue, but much of it is reinvested into the upkeep of the monarchy and the country's economy. For Harry and Meghan to allegedly request $330 million suggests that they believe the monarchy had not only the ability to pay but also a responsibility to ensure their continued financial stability. Their departure from royal duties in 2020 had already put them in a precarious position. While they secured lucrative deals with entertainment giants, reports indicate that their spending outpaced their earnings. The couple's Montecito mansion alone, worth over $14 million, required substantial upkeep, security costs, legal battles, and maintaining a high-profile public image all added to the pressure. If their financial future was truly at risk, then their request may have been less about luxury and more about survival. But even if this were the case, why did they believe King Charles would agree? The history of financial dealings within the royal family has always been complicated. While senior royals receive funding through the sovereign grant, those who choose to step away from royal duties forfeit this financial support. In stepping back, Harry and Meghan essentially cut themselves off from royal funds, yet it seems they assumed some level of financial responsibility remained on Charles's part. This assumption may have stemmed from past precedent. After all, when Prince Andrew faced his own financial troubles, he was reportedly bailed out by the late Queen. His legal issues, scandals, and expulsion from royal duties did not completely sever his financial ties to the family. The key difference, however, lies in the circumstances. Prince Andrew's issues were unique, and the decision to support him was made privately within the family. In contrast, Harry and Meghan's financial struggles, if real, have played out publicly, with their every move scrutinized by the media and royal watchers. Unlike Andrew, who remained largely out of the public eye following his disgrace, the Sussexes built their brand on remaining visible and vocal about their experiences with the monarchy. Any financial support from the royal family would immediately spark public outrage, particularly given the way the couple has positioned themselves as independent figures. If the request was genuine, It also raises the question of what Harry and Meghan were offering in return. Was this money meant to be a reconciliation fund, a way to mend the broken relationship between father and son? Or was it a form of compensation for what they perceived as injustices they faced within the royal family? Some reports suggest that the money was tied to the possibility of them ceasing further public attacks on the monarchy. In essence, a silent settlement, financial security in exchange for closing the book on their public grievances. From a strategic standpoint, this would have been an enticing proposal. For the past 4 years, Harry and Meghan's narrative has been built around their exit, their struggles, and their clashes with the royal family. A deal would have ensured that their side of the story ended there, allowing both parties to move forward without further controversy. But Charles, ever aware of the long-term consequences, seemed unwilling to take that risk. By rejecting the request, he not only reinforced his stance that their chapter within the monarchy was closed, but he also sent a clear message. There would be no financial reward for their defiance. That's all you can get. Those words, reportedly spoken by Charles in response to their request, carry a weight that extends far beyond finances. It is a declaration that their past as working royals no longer grants them any special privileges, that any notion of financial entitlement is a relic of a bygone era. In doing so, Charles reinforced a precedent. Stepping away from the monarchy means stepping away from its financial benefits, no exceptions. The rejection of this request undoubtedly left Harry and Meghan in a difficult position. Having burned bridges with the royal family, they now found themselves at a crossroads. Without financial backing from the monarchy, their options were limited. They could continue to seek out lucrative deals in Hollywood, but their current partnerships had already shown signs of instability. The termination of their Spotify contract and the reported struggles with their Netflix projects indicated that their brand was not as infallible as they once believed. The impact of Charles's decision extends beyond just the Sussexes. It sends a message to the broader public and to the remaining royals. The monarchy, under Charles's leadership, is not in the business of appeasement or financial settlements. It operates under rules and expectations, and those who choose to walk away must bear the consequences of their decisions. This move could shape how the monarchy deals with future dissent or potential defections within the royal ranks. The public reaction to this revelation has been mixed. On one hand, many royal supporters see Charles's decision as a necessary and justified move. They argue that Harry and Meghan made their choice in 2020, and expecting financial support years later contradicts the very independence they claim to seek. On the other hand, their supporters view this as another sign of the royal family's unwillingness to show compassion or understanding toward the couple's struggles. Media coverage has further intensified the narrative, with some outlets portraying Charles as a firm and strategic leader, while others paint him as a cold and unfeeling father. Regardless of where public opinion falls, the reality remains unchanged. Harry and Meghan will not receive financial aid from the monarchy, and their royal titles, once symbols of their status, now hang in uncertainty. What remains unclear is what happens next. If financial struggles are truly at the heart of this dispute, will the Sussexes pivot toward new ventures? Will they double down on their existing projects in hopes of proving they can sustain themselves without royal backing? Or will this rejection push them toward further exposing royal secrets in an effort to maintain public interest in their story? The ripple effects of this decision will continue to unfold in the coming months, but one thing is certain. This was more than just a financial dispute. It was a defining moment in the ongoing saga of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, a moment that could very well determine the trajectory of their future outside the monarchy. The refusal of the $330 million request was not just about money. It was a firm declaration that the rift between King Charles and Prince Harry had moved past the point of repair. But the real shock came with the second blow, the potential stripping of Harry and Meghan's royal titles. While their departure from royal duties had already resulted in the loss of their HRH, His and Her Royal Highness, designations, they retained their Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles. The latest reports suggest that this, too, might be at risk. To the outside world, titles may seem like ceremonial accessories, symbols of a bygone era with no real significance in the modern world. But for royals, titles are power. They are status, influence, and legitimacy. Losing a title is not just a bureaucratic adjustment, it's an erasure of royal identity. It's a mark of finality, a clear statement that the individual in question is no longer recognized as part of the establishment. Historically, the British monarchy has been cautious when it comes to stripping titles. Even in scandalous cases, such as those of Edward VIII after his abdication or Prince Andrew following the Jeffrey Epstein controversy, the process of removing royal status has been handled delicately. There is always an underlying awareness that such decisions carry lasting consequences. Stripping Harry and Meghan of their Sussex titles would be unprecedented, and it would send a strong message. There is no path back. If Charles is truly considering this move, it raises significant questions. What would motivate him to take such a drastic step? What would the implications be for Harry, Meghan, and their children? And how would the public react to such a historic decision? The first factor to consider is the legal and procedural aspect of stripping a royal title. Unlike minor honors that can be revoked with a simple declaration, ducal titles are deeply entrenched in British law. The Sussex dukedom was granted by Queen Elizabeth II upon Harry's marriage to Meghan in 2018. To remove it, Parliament would likely need to intervene, passing a bill that formally revokes the title. This would be no small task. The monarchy, while symbolic in many ways, still operates within a constitutional framework that requires government approval for such significant changes. If Charles were to move forward with this, he would need justifiable grounds. A loss of royal status due to abdication, disgrace, or exile has precedence in British history, but no senior royal in modern times has voluntarily stepped away from duties and then had their title stripped. If the palace presents this as a necessary step to preserve the integrity of the monarchy, they may find support among traditionalists who believe that royal titles should be reserved only for those actively serving the crown. The second factor is the broader impact on the royal family. Stripping Harry and Meghan of their titles would send a definitive message that their time as royals is over. It would remove any ambiguity about their status and eliminate any possibility of them using their royal associations to advance their personal brand. Without the Sussex title, they would no longer be seen as quasi-royals operating on the fringes of the institution. Instead, they would become private citizens in every sense of the word. For Charles, this decision would be about more than just cutting ties. It would be about protecting the monarchy from further reputational damage. Ever since their departure, Harry and Meghan have remained a disruptive force in royal narratives. Their interviews, memoirs, and documentaries have kept them in the public eye, often at the expense of the monarchy's reputation. By stripping them of their titles, Charles would effectively sever the final thread linking them to the institution. But such a move would not be without risks. The removal of their titles could backfire if the public perceives it as an act of vengeance rather than necessity. While many royalists would support the decision, there remains a significant portion of the public that sympathizes with Harry and Meghan, particularly among younger demographics and international audiences. Removing their titles could be seen as an attempt to silence them, fueling accusations that the monarchy is intolerant of criticism or unwilling to evolve. Another key consideration is how this decision would impact Archie and Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's children. As it stands, the children automatically became prince and princess upon King Charles's ascension to the throne, following a long-standing royal tradition that grants these titles to grandchildren of the reigning monarch. However, if their parents were stripped of their Sussex titles, it's possible that their own royal designations could be reconsidered. This would place Charles in an even more precarious position. Would he allow Archie and Lilibet to retain their royal status while their parents were cast out? Or would he go a step further and ensure that their connection to the monarchy was permanently severed? Such a decision would have ramifications for future generations, setting a precedent for how the royal family handles descendants of those who step away. For Harry and Meghan, the loss of their titles would be a devastating blow to their public identity. Much of their brand is built on their royal background. Their charitable endeavors, media projects, and public appearances often capitalize on the fact that they are not just celebrities, but former senior royals. Without the Sussex title, they become Harry and Meghan, no different from any other high-profile couple navigating Hollywood and philanthropy. While they could still use Prince Harry as a birthright title, its weight would be diminished if he was no longer officially recognized as the Duke of Sussex. Meghan, who gained global prominence largely due to her association with the royal family, would also lose a key part of her identity. For an image-conscious couple, this would be a severe setback. The loss of their titles would also likely impact their business ventures. While they have built their own brand outside of the monarchy, there is no denying that their royal status has played a significant role in attracting lucrative deals. Media companies, publishers, and sponsors have invested in them partly because of their unique position as royals who left the establishment. Without that royal connection, their marketability could take a hit. If Harry and Meghan were to lose their titles, how would they respond? There are several possibilities. They could attempt to rebrand themselves entirely, focusing on their personal achievements and advocacy work rather than their royal past. This would require a major shift in how they present themselves to the public, but it is not impossible. Figures like Michelle Obama and Angelina Jolie have built powerful personal brands that transcend their original public roles, and Harry and Meghan could attempt something similar. Another possibility is retaliation. If they perceive the stripping of their titles as an act of hostility, they may respond with further public disclosures about the royal family. The monarchy has long been wary of what Harry and Meghan might reveal, and a decision to remove their titles could push them to speak out even more aggressively. A new book, documentary, or high-profile interview could be their way of reclaiming control over the narrative. Finally, they could attempt legal action, though this would be a difficult battle. Unlike financial settlements or personal assets, royal titles are a matter of tradition and governance rather than personal entitlement. Even if they sought to challenge the decision, they would likely find little legal ground to stand on. Ultimately, the removal of their titles would be one of the most consequential actions taken against a royal in modern history. It would signify the complete and final break between Harry, Meghan, and the monarchy. It would close the door on any future reconciliation, ensuring that their paths remain separate for the rest of their lives. The question remains, is Charles truly willing to take this step? Or is the threat of title removal being used as leverage to discourage further conflicts? In the coming months, the world will be watching closely to see whether this final act of separation becomes a reality. The financial and title-related fallout of King Charles's decision extends far beyond Harry and Meghan themselves. The royal family, already navigating a delicate period of transition following Queen Elizabeth's passing, now faces a situation where one of its most well-known members is being openly rejected, not just in terms of financial support, but in every conceivable way that ties him to the institution. This raises an important question. Was this rejection simply about money and titles, or was it an intentional move to redefine the monarchy's relationship with its former prince once and for all? To fully understand the impact of King Charles's decision, we must examine it through the lens of royal history. The British monarchy has survived for centuries by carefully managing its public image, adapting to changing times, and ensuring that individual conflicts do not threaten the institution as a whole. While past royal feuds have resulted in exiles, disgraced family members, and even abdications, there has always been a calculated effort to maintain control over the narrative. In many ways, Charles's handling of Harry and Meghan mirrors past royal strategies, firm, unwavering, and structured in a way that prioritizes the monarchy over personal relationships. However, what makes this situation unprecedented is the fact that Harry and Meghan are not just another set of royals fading into obscurity. They have positioned themselves as independent global figures, celebrities with their own following, and public figures who continue to influence cultural and political discussions. Unlike other royals who stepped away quietly, the Sussexes have made themselves impossible to ignore. The question of whether Charles's decision was driven by personal emotion or strategic planning is significant. On one hand, there is no doubt that the rift between father and son is deeply personal. Harry's memoir, Spare, was filled with accounts that painted Charles as a distant and often inadequate parent. While some of these claims may have been exaggerated for dramatic effect, they still contributed to a growing perception of Charles as a monarch who places duty over family. His decision to reject the financial request and to consider title removal may be, in part, a reflection of his personal disappointment in how Harry has chosen to present their relationship to the world. On the other hand, it is possible that Charles's decision was purely strategic, made to set a precedent for how future royal conflicts will be handled. If Harry and Meghan had been granted financial support despite stepping away, it could have opened the door for similar requests from other disgruntled royals in the future. By shutting that door completely, Charles is sending a clear message. Those who leave the royal fold must do so on their own terms, without expecting financial assistance from the institution they abandoned. This approach aligns with Charles's broader vision for a streamlined, cost-efficient monarchy. For years, discussions have taken place about reducing the number of working royals who receive financial benefits from the state. In keeping with this vision, Charles has already begun cutting back on unnecessary expenditures and focusing resources on the core members of the royal family: himself, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. This means that even those who remain within the royal fold but serve a lesser role, such as Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, have seen their public funding significantly reduced. In this context, the idea of granting $330 million to Harry and Meghan would have directly contradicted Charles's long-term goals. However, rejecting their request for financial support does not necessarily eliminate the Sussexes from the global stage. If anything, this decision may have emboldened them to seek other avenues for financial security and influence. Without the backing of the royal family, Harry and Meghan are now left to fully depend on their own branding, media partnerships, and public engagements to maintain their status. But the question remains, can they sustain their high-profile lifestyle without continued access to royal prestige? Looking at their past ventures, it is clear that their financial trajectory has been unpredictable. Their initial deals with Netflix and Spotify were met with great enthusiasm, but the actual results have been mixed. While Harry's memoir Spare broke records, their Netflix documentary did not have the lasting cultural impact that was anticipated. Their Spotify contract, once considered a groundbreaking partnership, ended abruptly. With these setbacks, there is increasing speculation about whether they can secure new deals that will match their original earnings. One of the biggest challenges they now face is audience fatigue. When they first stepped away from the royal family, their story was compelling. An inside look at the workings of the monarchy, told from the perspective of two individuals who had supposedly escaped its control. But as time has passed, their narrative has become repetitive. There is only so much they can say about their struggles before the public loses interest. Without a new angle, a fresh project, or a different approach to public engagement, they risk fading into the background. To counter this, they may pivot toward new forms of influence. Meghan, for example, has expressed interest in politics and advocacy work. She has previously aligned herself with causes related to gender equality, mental health, and social justice. If she were to formally enter the political arena, she could attempt to shift the focus away from royal drama and establish herself as a serious figure in public policy. However, stepping into politics comes with its own risks, as it invites scrutiny that is often far more intense than what celebrities typically endure. Harry, on the other hand, may choose to continue focusing on mental health and veterans advocacy, areas where he has already built credibility. His work with the Invictus Games has been widely respected, and if he leans into this cause even more, he could regain some of the goodwill he has lost in recent years. However, the challenge remains that without royal backing, many of his past projects have lost the prestige they once carried. Perhaps the most unpredictable element in this entire situation is the role of the media. The British press, which has been largely critical of Harry and Meghan, will undoubtedly use this latest development to reinforce the idea that they are outsiders with no remaining ties to the monarchy. In contrast, certain American media outlets, particularly those sympathetic to Meghan's perspective, may frame this as an act of cruelty by King Charles. The way this narrative unfolds in the press could significantly impact public perception of both sides. If Charles's decision is seen as a necessary act of leadership, he may strengthen his reputation as a decisive and pragmatic ruler. However, if it is framed as a final rejection of his own son, he risks being perceived as cold and unyielding. The monarchy has long been criticized for prioritizing duty over personal relationships, and this latest move could reinforce that perception. Meanwhile, if Harry and Meghan continue to speak out, their credibility will depend on how they approach the situation. If they portray themselves as victims, they may attract sympathy from their supporters, but also risk alienating those who believe they should take responsibility for their choices. If they choose to rebrand themselves in a way that moves beyond royal grievances, they may be able to carve out a new identity that is not dependent on their past. Regardless of how this unfolds, one thing is clear. This decision marks a definitive turning point in the ongoing royal feud. The rejection of financial support, the potential stripping of titles, and the refusal to engage in reconciliation signal that the divide between the Sussexes and the monarchy is deeper than ever. Whether this is the final act in their ongoing conflict or just another chapter in a never-ending saga remains to be seen. What happens next will depend on how both sides choose to move forward. Will Harry and Meghan attempt to repair the damage, or will they escalate their criticism? Will Charles maintain his firm stance, or will public pressure force him to reconsider? These unanswered questions will shape the next phase of this royal crisis, and the world will be watching closely to see what happens next. The financial fallout of this decision extends beyond the immediate refusal of the $330 million request. It signals a broader reality for Harry and Meghan. Their transition from royal privilege to financial independence is no longer just a narrative they can control. It is now an undeniable truth with lasting consequences. As much as they have tried to position themselves as self-sufficient, the question remains. Can they truly sustain their current lifestyle and public image without royal backing? For much of Harry's life, financial security was never a concern. As a senior royal, he was entitled to a share of the Duchy of Cornwall's revenue, a vast estate generating millions annually. Even after stepping back, he had the inheritance from his mother, Princess Diana, reportedly around $10 million, and additional funds left to him by Queen Elizabeth's mother. Yet, when compared to the cost of living in Montecito, the price of security, staff, and maintaining a high-profile public image, these funds quickly pale in comparison. Without ongoing income streams, their financial stability is far from guaranteed. Meghan, on the other hand, entered the royal family with her own career earnings, primarily from her role on the television show Suits. However, her pre-royal wealth was nowhere near the level required to sustain the lifestyle they now maintain. While she has since leveraged her global fame into high-profile deals, it is unclear whether these ventures have been as profitable as initially projected. The cancellation of their Spotify contract and the underwhelming impact of their Netflix projects suggest that their brand, while powerful, may not have the longevity they expected. The reality is that their financial model hinges on continued public interest. Their initial appeal stemmed from their status as royals who defied the system, but that storyline has an expiration date. Once the novelty wears off, they need something new to keep audiences engaged. This is where the loss of their titles becomes a serious problem. Much of their marketability has been tied to their royal connections. Without the titles, they risk becoming just another high-profile celebrity couple, competing for attention in an already crowded entertainment landscape. For their business ventures to succeed, they must reinvent themselves beyond their royal drama. This means finding new ways to engage their audience, securing deals that are not solely reliant on their former royal status, and establishing credibility in industries where they are not just seen as outsiders capitalizing on their past. If they fail to do this, they may find themselves struggling to maintain the influence they once commanded. Security is another pressing concern. When they stepped back from royal duties, they lost publicly funded security, a loss that Harry has openly protested. The cost of maintaining their own security is significant, with estimates suggesting it could range between $2 million to $5 million per year, depending on the level of protection required. This expense alone places immense pressure on them to maintain a steady stream of income, as any lapse in their financial standing could jeopardize their safety. One potential avenue they could explore is a return to traditional entertainment. Meghan has already tested the waters with her podcast, and there have been rumors that she may seek acting opportunities again. If successful, this could provide a lucrative income source, but it also comes with risks. Meghan returning to Hollywood would place her in a different kind of scrutiny, one that focuses on her individual talent rather than her status as a royal. If audiences reject her as an actress rather than a public figure, it could damage her credibility even further. For Harry, the options are even more limited. His primary selling point has always been his connection to the royal family. Unlike Meghan, who had a pre-existing career, Harry's value in the public sphere has been largely dependent on his ability to offer an insider's perspective on the monarchy. Without that, what does he bring to the table? While his work with the Invictus Games and his interest in mental health advocacy are commendable, they do not necessarily translate into financial sustainability on their own. Another challenge they face is public perception. In the early days of their departure, they had strong public support, particularly in the United States. However, as time has passed, their repeated criticisms of the royal family, combined with their high-profile lifestyle, have led to increasing skepticism. Many now question whether they ever truly wanted independence, or if they simply wanted the benefits of royal status without the responsibilities. If they are not careful, they risk being perceived as opportunists who sought to distance themselves from the monarchy only to seek its financial support when it became convenient. The potential loss of their titles only exacerbates this issue. If they are no longer Duke and Duchess of Sussex, their brand will take a significant hit. Invitations to high-profile events, speaking engagements, and media opportunities may become less frequent. Their ability to command multimillion-dollar deals may diminish. They would no longer be seen as royals operating outside the system, but as former royals who were decisively cut off. Despite these challenges, they do have opportunities. If they successfully pivot toward philanthropy, they could rebuild their image as global humanitarians. If they strategically choose media projects that focus on broader issues rather than personal grievances, they may regain some credibility. But this requires careful planning and a willingness to step away from the royal controversy narrative that has sustained them thus far. Ultimately, the financial fallout of this decision is not just about money. It is about sustainability. Can Harry and Meghan maintain their public image and influence without royal ties? Can they prove to the world that they do not need the monarchy to remain relevant? The answers to these questions will determine the next phase of their journey. But one thing is certain, the path ahead will not be easy. The security of royal life is gone, the financial safety net has been removed, and the titles that once granted them automatic prestige are now in jeopardy. Whether they rise to the challenge or struggle under its weight remains to be seen. From a broader perspective, the rejection of Harry and Meghan's financial request and the potential stripping of their titles is not just a personal conflict between a father and his son. It is a direct reflection of the shifting dynamics within the royal family. King Charles is not merely making a decision about his estranged son. He is making a statement about how the monarchy will operate under his reign. And in doing so, he is reinforcing a clear distinction between those who serve the institution and those who seek to benefit from it without fulfilling its duties. For decades, the British monarchy has balanced tradition with the necessity of modernizing in order to remain relevant. Queen Elizabeth II mastered the art of walking this tightrope, maintaining the aura of royalty while subtly adapting to a rapidly changing world. Her approach allowed the monarchy to survive political shifts, global crises, and even internal scandals. But with her passing, Charles inherited not just the throne, but also the responsibility of redefining the institution for a new era. His response to Harry and Meghan's request can be seen as part of this broader strategy. One of the key elements of this strategy is his focus on streamlining the monarchy. In recent years, there has been increasing criticism about the cost of maintaining a large royal family, especially at a time when economic challenges are affecting millions of citizens. Charles has long been an advocate for a slimmed-down monarchy, reducing the number of working royals who receive financial support from the sovereign grant. This approach not only addresses public concerns about excessive spending, but also ensures that the royal family is seen as an efficient and purpose-driven institution. Against this backdrop, granting Harry and Meghan a massive financial settlement would have been a contradiction. How could Charles justify cutting down royal expenditures while simultaneously providing a $330 million payout to two individuals who chose to leave? Doing so would have sent the wrong message, not just to the public but also to the remaining working royals, who have continued to fulfill their duties without controversy. If Charles had agreed to this request, it would have set a dangerous precedent, signaling that royals could step away and still expect financial privileges. This is particularly important when considering the future of the monarchy. Charles is not just governing in the present. He is laying the groundwork for Prince William's eventual reign. Every decision he makes now will shape the institution that William inherits. And it is no secret that William has taken a firm stance on accountability within the royal family. He has been clear in his expectations that those who carry royal titles must uphold the responsibilities that come with them. If Charles had agreed to financially support Harry and Meghan, it would have undermined this principle, creating a situation where William might have to contend with similar requests in the future. The royal family also understands that their reputation is built on consistency. The monarchy has survived for centuries because it operates within a structure that is resistant to emotional decision-making. If Charles had granted Harry and Meghan's request, it would have appeared as an emotional response rather than a calculated decision. This would have weakened his credibility as king, making it seem as though he could be pressured into financial settlements whenever family tensions arose. Another critical factor in this decision is public perception. The British royal family is deeply intertwined with public opinion, and Charles is acutely aware that every major decision he makes will be scrutinized. The response to this particular situation has been polarized, with some viewing it as a necessary act of leadership while others see it as cold and unfeeling. However, when looking at the broader picture, the logic behind Charles's decision becomes clearer. The British public has shown increasing frustration with the idea of funding non-working royals. Polls indicate that a significant portion of the population supports a monarchy that is focused on service rather than entitlement. Had Charles agreed to pay Harry and Meghan, he would have faced backlash not only from royal traditionalists, but also from ordinary citizens who believe that taxpayer money should not be used to support individuals who have chosen to leave royal life. Even outside of the United Kingdom, this decision has implications. The royal family is not just a national institution, it is a global brand. Charles understands that his leadership will be judged by international audiences, and he cannot afford to make decisions that compromise the monarchy's reputation. The rejection of Harry and Meghan's financial request reinforces the idea that the monarchy is an institution of discipline and accountability, rather than one that can be influenced by individual grievances. At the same time, this decision has significant consequences for Harry and Meghan's standing in the global community. If there was any lingering hope for reconciliation between Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the royal family, King Charles's firm decision to refuse their financial request and potentially strip their titles has made it clear that the door is nearly shut. What remains to be seen is how the fallout from this unprecedented move will shape the future of the Sussexes and the monarchy as a whole. The long-term implications of this decision extend far beyond the immediate impact on Harry and Meghan's financial standing. It speaks to a larger question. Can reconciliation ever happen, or has this solidified an unbridgeable divide? For many royal watchers, this move was inevitable. From the moment Harry and Meghan stepped away from their royal duties, they set themselves on a collision course with the monarchy. Their decision to air grievances in high-profile interviews, from their explosive Oprah Winfrey interview to Harry's controversial memoir Spare, created a narrative that positioned them as victims of an outdated and, in their view, oppressive institution. While this narrative gained them significant support, particularly in the United States, it also burned bridges within the royal household. Every revelation, every criticism, every public claim of mistreatment pushed them further away from any chance of returning to the fold. Even before this latest rejection, signs of estrangement had been visible for years. The royal family's muted response to Spare, a book that contained deeply personal accusations against Charles, Camilla, and Prince William, spoke volumes. Instead of engaging in public rebuttals or attempts at damage control, the palace maintained its long-standing policy of never complain, never explain. This silence was not an indication of indifference, but rather a strategic choice to avoid giving further attention to the controversy. King Charles, despite being portrayed in Harry's book as a distant father, has always operated with a sense of duty above personal sentiment. His decision to refuse financial support to the Sussexes is not merely about financial prudence. It is a declaration that the monarchy cannot be held hostage by individuals who have chosen to step away from its obligations while still expecting its benefits. His message is clear. You cannot have it both ways. With this decision, the remaining senior royals, most notably Prince William, have also had their positions reinforced. William, who has had a strained relationship with Harry for years, reportedly feels betrayed by his brother's actions. He has taken on greater responsibilities within the royal family, and the last thing he wants is for the institution to be further embroiled in unnecessary distractions. By denying Harry and Meghan's request, Charles is not just drawing a line in the sand. He is also supporting William's vision of a modernized, disciplined monarchy. If there was ever a moment for reconciliation, it likely passed long ago. Had the Sussexes returned to the United Kingdom after their initial departure with a willingness to rebuild relationships privately, things might have played out differently. Instead, the choices they made, documentaries, interviews, books, ensured that their conflicts with the monarchy remained public. At this point, even if they were to express a desire to mend ties, their actions have already shaped the narrative in a way that makes reconciliation nearly impossible. This raises an important question. How do Harry and Meghan move forward without the prospect of returning to the royal fold? They have built their public identities around their royal past, but as the years pass and their connection to the institution fades, they will need to redefine their roles in a way that is not solely dependent on their previous status. One possibility is that they fully commit to life in the United States, focusing on philanthropy, media ventures, and advocacy. Meghan, who has expressed interest in political and social causes, may seek to establish herself as a voice in activism or even political circles. While this transition would require careful navigation, as political engagement comes with its own set of challenges, it could provide her with a new identity beyond the Duchess of Sussex title. For Harry, the situation is more complex. His work with the Invictus Games has been widely respected, and he could continue to build his legacy through veterans advocacy and mental health initiatives. However, without the royal platform, his efforts may not receive the same level of global attention. He faces a difficult choice. Does he attempt to create a new identity separate from the one that made him famous, or does he continue leveraging his past in ways that may become less effective over time? Another challenge they face is their relationship with the media. While they have been successful in securing major deals with Netflix and other platforms, the sustainability of these partnerships depends on their ability to generate continued interest. The challenge is that much of the media coverage they have received has been tied to their conflicts with the royal family. Without new controversies or revelations, maintaining that level of attention will be increasingly difficult. This is why their next moves must be carefully calculated. If they attempt to reignite royal drama to stay relevant, they risk further alienating audiences who may be growing weary of their grievances. On the other hand, if they pivot to new endeavors, whether through humanitarian work, business ventures, or entertainment, they must do so in a way that feels authentic and not simply another attempt to monetize their past. Public perception will be crucial. If they are seen as a couple genuinely working toward positive change, they may regain some of the credibility they have lost. But if they are perceived as constantly seeking attention through controversy, they could find themselves struggling to maintain relevance. King Charles, for his part, will continue focusing on strengthening the monarchy's position in the modern world. His reign is still in its early stages, and every decision he makes will shape how he is remembered. His choice to stand firm against Harry and Meghan's financial request and title privileges sends a clear message about the direction in which he wants to take the institution. It is a move that prioritizes the monarchy's integrity over personal reconciliation, reinforcing the idea that the royal family exists to serve, not to provide financial security to those who have chosen to leave. The British public, for the most part, appears to support this approach. While opinions on Harry and Meghan vary, there is a general consensus that the monarchy should not be seen as an endless source of financial support for those who are no longer contributing to its duties. Charles's decision reflects this sentiment, ensuring that the monarchy remains aligned with public expectations. For Harry and Meghan, this chapter marks a definitive turning point. They are now firmly outside the royal system, with no lifeline to return. Whatever they do next will be entirely on their own terms. Whether this leads to success or further struggles depends on the choices they make in the coming months and years. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The era of ambiguity regarding their relationship with the monarchy is over. There is no more speculation about whether they will return, no more questions about whether they can reconcile on their own terms. The lines have been drawn, and they must now navigate a world where the privileges of their past are no longer within reach. This is where their real test begins. Without the monarchy as a backdrop, who are they? Without the royal family to define their narrative, what story do they tell now? The answers to these questions will determine their legacy in the years to come. The battle between King Charles and the Sussexes over money and titles may seem like a personal family dispute, but it represents something much deeper, an ongoing struggle between tradition and modernity, monarchy and celebrity, duty and independence. It is a story that has captivated the world because it reflects broader themes that go beyond royal politics. It speaks to issues of power, privilege, responsibility, and public perception. Now that King Charles has made his stance clear, the next phase of this saga will be shaped by how both sides respond. For Harry and Meghan, the rejection of their financial request and the possible stripping of their titles puts them in a position where they must prove that they can thrive without the royal safety net. Since their departure, they have often walked a fine line, seeking financial independence while also capitalizing on their royal connections. This strategy has worked to some extent, but it is not a sustainable model. Now that Charles has signaled that they will not receive any further support, they have no choice but to stand entirely on their own. This means making strategic decisions about their future. Do they continue leveraging their connection to the royal family in their media projects, or do they attempt to shift the narrative towards something new? The former option is risky because it could lead to diminishing returns. There is only so much they can say about their royal departure before audiences lose interest. The latter option is equally challenging because it requires them to establish a new identity that is not rooted in their past grievances. The financial implications of this decision are significant. Without royal backing, they must ensure that their existing projects generate enough revenue to support their lifestyle. While they have earned millions from book deals, media contracts, and speaking engagements, these are not guaranteed long-term income sources. Netflix and other platforms may not continue investing in them if their content does not consistently perform well. Unlike established figures in Hollywood or politics, they do not have decades of experience in any particular field outside of royalty, which makes their financial future uncertain. Their real challenge is not just maintaining financial stability, but doing so in a way that does not make them appear desperate. If they continue to make decisions that seem like attempts to stay in the spotlight at all costs, they risk alienating even their most loyal supporters. If they take a more measured approach, focusing on philanthropy, business ventures, or meaningful advocacy work, they may be able to build a sustainable future outside of the monarchy. One possible path for them is to fully embrace their American audience. In the United Kingdom, their popularity has declined significantly due to the perception that they betrayed the royal family. In the United States, however, they still have considerable influence. If they focus on establishing themselves as global philanthropists, public speakers, or even business figures, they may be able to reshape their public image. Meghan, in particular, has the potential to enter the political arena, especially given her past activism and connections in American politics. However, this path also has risks. If they align too closely with political causes, they could become polarizing figures. The appeal of royalty, even for those who support Harry and Meghan, has always been that it exists above partisan politics. If they engage too heavily in activism or political movements, they could alienate portions of their audience who prefer them as cultural figures rather than political influencers. For King Charles, the consequences of his decision are equally important. By denying financial support and considering the removal of titles, he has taken a firm stance on how the monarchy will handle internal conflicts moving forward. But this does not mean the decision is without potential downsides. There is still a risk that this move could make him appear heartless, particularly to those who believe that a father should always be willing to support his son, no matter the circumstances. If this perception takes hold, it could damage his reputation, particularly among younger audiences who are already less invested in the monarchy. At the same time, Charles's decision reinforces his broader vision for the royal family. He has made it clear that his reign will focus on duty, responsibility, and accountability. If the public perceives this as an effort to modernize and streamline the monarchy, he may gain more support, particularly among those who have called for the institution to be more financially responsible. The biggest unknown factor is how this decision will impact the monarchy in the long run. Harry and Meghan may no longer be working royals, but they are still incredibly influential figures. If they decide to retaliate with further media projects that expose more details about the royal family, it could create additional controversies that Charles will have to manage. On the other hand, if they decide to move on and focus on other ventures, the royal family may finally be able to close this chapter and focus on its own public image without the constant shadow of Sussex-related scandals. Another key element to consider is how this will affect public opinion of Prince William. As the future king, William has played a quieter but no less important role in the handling of the Harry and Meghan situation. While Charles has been the one making direct decisions, it is widely believed that William has supported a firm stance against the Sussexes. William has always been seen as more traditional in his approach to the monarchy, and he understands that any concessions to Harry and Meghan could weaken the institution. If the removal of their titles is finalized, it will likely be with William's full approval. This will further cement the idea that William is being positioned as a strong, no-nonsense leader who will not tolerate actions that threaten the stability of the monarchy. This approach may appeal to royalists who value tradition, but it could also make William appear rigid and unwilling to mend broken relationships. Whether this strengthens or weakens his future reign remains to be seen. Looking ahead, there are a few key moments that could determine how this situation unfolds. First, if Harry and Meghan respond publicly to Charles's decision, their reaction will set the tone for what comes next. If they choose to attack the monarchy once again, it will reinforce the divide. If they remain silent or take a more diplomatic approach, there may still be a chance for limited reconciliation in the future. Second, if Parliament is involved in the removal of their titles, it could become a larger political issue. The monarchy, while largely symbolic, still operates within the British government, and any decision regarding royal titles could spark debate among politicians and the public. If this happens, it could extend the controversy and keep the issue in the headlines longer than the royal family would prefer. Finally, there is the long-term question of how history will judge this moment. In the years to come, will Charles be seen as a strong king who made difficult but necessary decisions? Will Harry and Meghan be remembered as brave figures who stood up to the monarchy, or as individuals who failed to move beyond their grievances? These questions will not be answered immediately, but they will shape the legacy of everyone involved. One thing is certain, the era of ambiguity regarding Harry and Meghan's relationship with the monarchy is over. There will be no more speculation about whether they can return, no more debates about whether they should receive royal privileges while living independently. The decision has been made, and the consequences will unfold in the years to come. For now, all eyes remain on what happens next. Will the Sussexes adapt and build a new life without royal ties? Or will they continue to engage in a battle that has no clear winner? Will King Charles's firm stance strengthen the monarchy, or will it create divisions that linger for generations? These are the unanswered questions that will shape the next chapter of this extraordinary royal drama. The impact of King Charles's decision does not end with the immediate refusal of financial support or the potential stripping of Harry and Meghan's titles. The deeper effects will ripple through not just the royal family, but also through public opinion, international relations, and the long-term stability of the monarchy itself. This is not simply a case of a king cutting off a rebellious son. It is a defining moment in how the monarchy chooses to handle internal dissent in a world where traditional royal power is no longer absolute. For the royal family, this decision solidifies a clear standard moving forward. Those who step away from royal duties cannot expect to benefit from royal privileges. It is a precedent that will likely influence future generations of royals, ensuring that no one can use the monarchy as a safety net while simultaneously rejecting its rules. This is particularly significant as King Charles continues to promote a slimmed-down monarchy. His goal has always been to focus resources on a smaller group of working royals who actively contribute to the institution's responsibilities. By refusing to financially support Harry and Meghan, he has sent a message to all extended family members. Only those who serve the monarchy will receive its protection and financial backing. This approach may prove beneficial in the long run, especially as the British public grows increasingly critical of taxpayer money being used to fund non-working royals. The monarchy's survival depends not just on tradition, but on its ability to remain relevant in the eyes of the public. By distancing itself from controversy and focusing on duty, the royal family strengthens its position as an institution that exists for service rather than self-indulgence. However, this decision is not without risks. While many support Charles's firm stance, there are others who see this move as unnecessarily harsh. A father cutting off his son, especially in such a public manner, risks making Charles look unfeeling, reinforcing the criticisms that have followed him for much of his life. His reign is still in its early stages, and while he has managed to assert himself as a capable monarch, his ability to maintain widespread public approval is still in question. For many, the emotional weight of this situation cannot be ignored. Harry's departure was not just about stepping away from duty. It was a deeply personal decision shaped by his experiences growing up in the royal family. The loss of his mother, Princess Diana, at such a young age, left a lasting impact on him. His resentment toward the press, his struggles with mental health, and his desire to protect his family from what he perceived as a toxic environment all played a role in his decision to leave. While many agree that he had the right to make that choice, the expectation was that he would also take full responsibility for the consequences. The fact that he and Meghan later sought financial support from the very institution they distanced themselves from has created a perception that they wanted independence only on their own terms. This is where public sympathy becomes divided. On one hand, there are those who argue that Harry and Meghan have faced unfair treatment, not just from the royal family but from the British media as well. They believe the couple was forced out, and that their decision to leave was a matter of self-preservation rather than rebellion. On the other hand, many feel that they have deliberately positioned themselves as victims while simultaneously benefiting from the fame and connections that their royal status provided. The challenge for Harry and Meghan now is proving that they can stand on their own without relying on their past grievances to maintain relevance. Their next steps will determine how they are perceived moving forward. If they continue to make public statements about the royal family, they risk reinforcing the idea that they cannot move on. If they choose to focus on new ventures, they may be able to shift the conversation and regain credibility. The challenge, however, is that their brand has been so closely tied to royal controversy that moving away from it may not be easy. Meghan, in particular, faces a unique challenge. Before joining the royal family, she was a moderately successful actress, best known for her role in Suits. Since leaving the monarchy, she has struggled to establish a new identity that is not connected to royal drama. Her attempts at podcasting and media projects have yielded mixed results, and while she remains a high-profile figure, she has yet to carve out a lasting role outside of her association with Harry and the monarchy. If Meghan decides to return to Hollywood or pursue new business ventures, she will need to do so in a way that is authentic and not seen as a desperate attempt to stay in the public eye. If she chooses philanthropy, she will need to prove that her efforts are genuine and not just a means of maintaining influence. Every move she makes will be scrutinized, and any misstep could further damage her reputation. Harry's situation is slightly different. Unlike Meghan, his entire life has been shaped by the monarchy. His military career, his charitable work, and his global recognition all stem from his royal status. Without it, he must redefine himself in a way that is not solely reliant on his past. His work with the Invictus Games remains his strongest platform, and if he focuses on veterans advocacy and mental health initiatives, he may be able to build a new legacy. However, this will require him to step away from the narrative of royal conflict and focus on positive contributions. One of the biggest unknown factors in this situation is whether the decision to cut off financial support and titles will push Harry and Meghan toward more drastic actions. If they feel they have nothing left to lose, they may choose to retaliate with more revelations about the royal family. This could come in the form of another book, a new documentary, or high-profile interviews that seek to expose even more about their experiences. If this happens, the royal family will once again be forced to navigate public controversy, something they have worked hard to avoid. Alternatively, if Harry and Meghan choose to move on quietly, it could signal that they are ready to embrace a new chapter. This would be the healthiest path for both them and the royal family, allowing each side to exist separately without constant conflict. However, whether they are willing to take this approach remains to be seen. Another major consideration is how this decision will impact their children, Archie and Lilibet. As they grow older, they will inevitably become aware of the tensions between their parents and the royal family. If their parents continue to speak out against the monarchy, it could create a complicated relationship between the children and their extended family. On the other hand, if efforts are made to maintain a level of civility, there may still be opportunities for them to have a connection with their royal relatives. The long-term impact of King Charles's decision will not be fully realized for years. Right now, it marks a definitive end to any lingering speculation about Harry and Meghan's place within the royal family. It also sets the tone for how the monarchy will handle similar situations in the future. But as time goes on, the real question will be whether this decision strengthens the monarchy or creates new divisions that last for generations. For now, the message is clear. The era of half-in, half-out arrangements within the royal family is over. Charles has drawn the line, and there will be no exceptions. The consequences of that line will continue to unfold, shaping the future of both the Sussexes and the institution they left behind. As the dust settles on King Charles's firm rejection of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's financial request and the looming possibility of title removal, the implications of this decision continue to unfold. This is not just a short-term crisis. It is a defining moment that will shape the long-term trajectory of the monarchy and the Sussexes' future. The question that remains is whether this marks the end of the public conflict or if it is just another chapter in an ongoing battle. For the royal family, this decision brings both relief and challenges. On one hand, Charles has drawn a clear boundary, removing any ambiguity about Harry and Meghan's standing within the monarchy.